And to the analysis of Shields and Brooks, that is syndicated columnist Mark Shields and New York Times columnist David Brooks. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Judy.
It's good to have you here. So the standoff over the payroll tax cut, David, finally yesterday the Republicans gave in. Were they outmaneuvered? What happened here?
Yeah, I think they didn't understand politics. I sort of sympathize with them in principle. We've got a bunch of national pastimes, baseball, motherhood, apple pie, and raiding Social Security to pay for our own spending. And that's what we decided to do, in part for stimulus. And in the Senate, they reached sort of a rushed temporary compromise on how to raid Social Security to pay for some stimulative spending. But it would only do it for 2 months. In the House, the Republicans said, something squalid going on here, and they began to reject the idea. Some of them rejected the idea of raiding it entirely. Some of them just the 2-month extension. They wanted the full year. Why do this 2-month thing? And so they rebelled. They rebelled against their own speaker. They rebelled against the Senate. But the country wanted the tax cuts. And sometimes in politics, you don't get to choose what you want. There are other people in town. And so they tried to make a stand on principle without actually having a principle. And they basically got rolled. In politics, often you don't have a good option. You have 6 really squalid options, and you choose the least bad one. And so this is their education, that sometimes the circumstances are such, just go with the least bad and get it over with. And maybe that'll be the education for them.
Mark, how much damage has this done to the Republicans, or has it?
Yeah, I just add on that. I think that the Republicans made a reactionary mistake, Judy. There was in the Republican House caucus, they should have been, David's right, they should have understood once Senate Republican Senate Democrats had overwhelmingly supported, Democrats in the House supported the 2-month, the president supported it, that they were outvoted. But I think there is in the Republican caucus, in the House, and in the Congress, and in the party nationally, there is an anti-Obama reaction. And if the president's for something, the president can endorse the 10 commandments, they'd say, can we cut it to 7? I mean, there really is sort of that reaction, and I think that was it was driven in part by ideology as well.
So you're saying it was personal?
Well, the same party that will fight tooth and toenail to preserve $1.5 trillion in tax cuts that George Bush wrote into law that benefit the most wealthy among us, without ever wondering how they should be funded or financed, that never wondered how the Iraq war should be funded or financed, all of a sudden become punctilious and almost green eye shade accountants and bookkeepers when it comes to funding this. I agree with David that it is a very, very questionable public policy to take the revenue stream that's dedicated for Social Security, and to use it, and we have done it. This is not the first time it's been done, but it should not be done.
So you're both saying that's a mistake, the whole premise behind this,
yeah,
whether
well,
it's 2 months or a year.
A dubious stimulative effect. And, you know, we're going to have to pay it. It's not like it's free money. We will have to pay it. The ideological or the intellectual defense of what the Republicans were objecting to is that a permanent tax cut has long-term, really economic effects. A temporary tax cut, nobody really changes their behavior. You don't hire people because of a 2-month benefit. And so that's the intellectual thing. I agree there's also a large personal element involved.
Well, if it's such a bad idea to take this money out of the Social Security fund, if I don't know, do you feel it stimulates the economy?
I do think it's the only federal stimulus that Republicans will vote for, is this tax cut. I mean, so I can understand. I mean, putting money into people's pockets in hopes that will stimulate, will spend. I can understand certainly the economic theory behind it, and I think it's more than plausible.
So does it? Excuse me. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, but so I think in that sense you can make a case for it. But it isn't like there's 3 other policies that the Republicans would back. The Republicans would back this, and I don't think anybody thought it was going to be for 2 months. I mean, the Republicans found themselves arguing process, Judy. I mean, it was terrible. They said, what the problem is here, we don't have regular order. We're not appointing conferees. People's eyes are glazing over, and the Democrats have the wall poster argument to say, we're for the preserving tax cuts.
Well, how much are the Democrats helped?
I think a little. I mean, if we weren't talking about this, we'd be talking about how much the Democrats gave in to the Republicans, and they actually did give in a bunch of stuff. And instead, we're talking about, why are these guys so wild-eyed and crazy? And why can't they run an organization? And so it helps. I don't think it's a huge story. I think most of the country is tuned out. We've had a whole series of budget fights. This is just another. People who care about politics mostly are focused on the presidential race. So I don't think it's a huge story. Nonetheless, if you take a look at the polling, who do you trust on tax policy? Republicans recently and historically have this huge advantage. That advantage is right now gone, and this must play a role in that.
David's absolutely right, and I think it helps the president in this sense that the reality is people look at Washington, they see hyperpartisanship, they see rancor, they see dysfunction, malfunction, however you want to put it, and I think it does two things. It makes the president look like the one grown-up in the entire melodrama, and secondly, it hurts Newt Gingrich because it reminds people of what it was like when we were impeaching a president, closing down a government, and stalking off Air Force One. I mean, I think in a strange way that the only way you can account for Newt Gingrich's slipping nationally is not that commercials are being used against him in Iowa, because nobody's seeing them outside of Des Moines, Waterloo, Dubuque, and Sioux City. But I think there is a sense of, do we really want to go back to those times? And this is a reminder of it.
The irony, of course, is that the Newt Gingrich-Bill Clinton relationship was a model of comedy compared to what we have
what we see today. Well, speaking of Newt Gingrich, David, Iowa caucus is just 11 days away. Where do things stand right now?
I think pretty good. Well, first, pretty bad for Newt Gingrich. And in Iowa, it is because of the ads. The super PACs are loosely affiliated, very loosely affiliated with Ron Paul and Mitt Romney, are throwing in a ton of money to hit him on everything from Freddie Mac to everything else. And he doesn't have the resources to respond or the infrastructure to respond. So he's falling. So Ron Paul and Mitt Romney are now looking like the frontrunners, which has got to be good news for Mitt Romney in the long term. Because I don't think Ron Paul is going to go toe-to-toe with Mitt Romney for campaign after campaign. And so I think this has been overall a good week for Romney. The only final thing I'll say, I think on this show last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I said something incorrect. And Mark was right about something.
Well, it was the only thing.
And I thought when Paul made this Iran statement in the debate where he said we should not go to war with Iran, it was a very anti-interventionist posture toward Iran. I thought, oh, that's it for Ron Paul. But he's not only said in the debate, he's leading his speeches with it, and he's doing fine. So
in Iowa.
In Iowa, at least. I don't think he's going to be a national candidate, but he's doing quite well the last couple of weeks.
And you're saying he could win the Iowa
He could,
caucus?
and I thank David for that. And as soon as there's a case where the reverse is true, I will make note of it. No, as well. No. I think that it is for Romney. The one point of dissent with David is the question of them being loosely affiliated. The super PACs are, I mean, this is a legal fiction we go through. They are part of the campaign. They're an extension of the campaign, thanks to terrible bad court decisions. So, I mean, this is a way of my washing my hands of it, that as my super PAC attacks you, I can say, oh, well, if I intervene, that would be wrong. That would be a violation.
We're talking about, just to clarify for people who don't use the term, these are these independent entities that raise a lot of money.
That's right.
That are not technically legally supposed to coordinate
That's
with
right.
the candidate.
And where they do raise money from supporters of one of the candidates more than other candidates, right. And they never attack the candidate or criticize the candidate for whom they're raising money. They simply go after. I mean, it basically have savaged Gingrich out there.
And this week, Gingrich asked Romney to stop it, and Romney said, "I can't do that because I'd be thrown in, what do you say, the big house."
And technically that's correct. You're not allowed to coordinate. But if you're a PAC supporting Romney, it doesn't take a genius. You should attack Newt Gingrich on Freddie Mac. That doesn't take super strategy. And so Romney has plausible deniability, but they're all on the same side. And Gingrich, he doesn't have the really the record to withstand this kind of scrutiny. And now, by the way, we're seeing Ron Paul get attacked for some of the racist things that went out under his name many years ago.
Little thing we reported in the news a minute ago that Vice President Biden wrote a piece today going after Romney's philosophy on the economy.
And it was in the Des Moines Register.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I do not understand. I mean, I think that the president's had a good week. His numbers are up, at least in comparison. I don't understand it, but I'm sure there is some shrewdness to it. The problem on the attack, Judy, for Gingrich is Gingrich finds himself attacking and responding to the attacks. He's totally off message now. So he's criticizing. He's now arguing about the campaign. campaigns are about voters. They're not about campaigns, and they're not about candidates. And so the more that Newt Gingrich feels himself forced to respond to Romney, criticize Romney for doing this, the Romney PACs and the attacks upon him, the less he is communicating with voters and with the message that got him to the point where he's at the front of the race.
But so why is he doing it?
Well, he's got nothing left.
Yeah.
And to me, what's happening is the gradual, silent capitulation to Romney. One of the things that strikes me is by conservatives, because what you see, Gingrich beginning to fall, Paul's doing fine, but you see the others, the Santorums, the Perrys, the Bachmans. Santorum's going up a little, but none of them are surging. So we've seen this succession of anti-Romneys rising. Right now we're seeing no new, fresh anti-Romney. And so to me, that makes me think that conservatives are beginning to capitulate and not accept the idea of a Romney nomination.
And I think probably the argument they'd make is that he's the most electable. It was not unlike the argument that Democrats made in 2004 about John Kerry in Iowa, that he was the most electable, they thought, against George W. Bush.
All right, I'm not going to make you two do this, but in the spirit of the season, do you have a holiday wish for anybody who's involved in politics or policy making? David?
I will say the 4 congressional leaders, Nancy Pelosi and the rest, and send them up to a beautiful place in Glacier National Park in Montana, Frozen Lake. They can hike up there. I will pay for airfare and a tent. They can stay there for a week. Maybe they could do next year's budget up there. It would be a much better country if they were together up there.
Boehner, Pelosi, Reid, and McConnell.
No, they could do the budget up there on their own. It's a beautiful place. They'd be inspired. This would be a much better country.
Your wish, holiday wish?
Talk about the Grinch over here. For goodness sakes. My wish is that everybody, whoever he or she is, has a colleague as civil and decent and honorable as David Brooks.
Wow. Well, their two are kind of connected, aren't they?
Yeah. I always thought he was honorable until that moment. Now I find out there's this mean
I'm
underside.
trying to inspire the country.
Okay.
Thank you.
You do from
Thank
time
you.
to time.
Happy holidays to you both. We'll
Merry
see you next
Christmas.
week.
Thank you.